of the internet. Welcome to my video. So, this is the beginning of my Monday series of videos, and on Monday for the next few weeks, what we're going to be exploring is some of the reasons why people exercise and don't see results. And unfortunately, I know from being in this business for just over 20 years, and then, being around it for a good 10 years before I was part of it professionally, a vast majority of the people who exercise don't see the results they want, whether they're just going to the gym by themselves or if they plug into a program. It's a common problem. So we're going to be looking at some of the reasons, some of the less obvious reasons this happens. Some of the obvious things that people tend to look at are age and genetics. I'm not going to be talking about those a lot, because I think they get overplayed a bit. Genetics are definitely a factor as far as like how extreme someone can develop and to what kind of potential they have. So when you're talking about professional athletes of any sport, genetics are definitely a factor, and I'll probably talk about that in a different video sometime down the road. As far as age, obviously age is a factor, but you can be any age and still see some kind of results. So we're going to be looking at some of the less obvious reasons this is a problem, and this week we're going to be getting into what I call lesson 1. So that follows. Thank you. So, hello. It is good to be finally getting back online. I have been offline for a while, a couple months, but now I have a new channel and a new brand, so Gogi Strength and Conditioning is live, and we're rocking. So, today I'm going to talk a little bit about what I am currently calling Lesson 1. I am reserving the right to adjust that in the future as I kind of think about the future of my business and what I'm going to do. But for right now, we're going with this is the first lesson, okay? And this is a lesson that applies to, this is a lesson that's going to apply to personal trainers, strength coaches, and also just general gym goers. So if you're just someone who's working out and trying to either get in shape or get ready for some kind of competition, or if you are someone who helps people do that, then this lesson is applicable across the board. So the root of this is during my first career, I had an interest in being a bodyguard. That was a very difficult field to break into 20 years ago, so I think it's a little bit easier now, but so I kind of combined that. Well, I didn't kind of combine it. I combined that with teaching self-defense, and I did quite a bit of consulting on things like stalker cases and one significant kidnapping. But it was mostly teaching self-defense, and then during that period, as I continued to learn, a guy named Tony Blauer that I had plugged into made the comment that a lot of people who say they have 15 or 16 years of experience in a given field really mean they have 1 year of experience that they've just repeated a given number of times. So I thought about that a lot. It made a pretty big impression on me because I observed that. He was speaking specifically about martial artists, in which case I think that concept is probably the norm. But I think it's a principle that applies to a lot of different professions. So, or hobbies or whatever. And I don't think that's always a bad thing. I think there are some things that within like a year or two, you can kind of get the basics down and get really good at the basics. That is probably a subject I will explore in a future video. Today I just want to get the general concept across. So when I started in the personal training field, I noticed that idea was very applicable. Of course, this is going back about 20 years. So back then, most of your personal trainers were people who liked physique sports, and they just thought training would be a good fit. So it wasn't really, 20 years ago, it wasn't really considered a serious profession. That's kind of developed in that period of time. And now, I mean, most trainers have college degrees. That wasn't the case 20 years ago. I mean, it was not the case at all. But that's changed a lot, and that's fine. But the point is, I observed very early that a lot of trainers just, you know, they kind of got that first year under the belt, and then they just kind of kept doing the same nonsense. I shouldn't say nonsense, but the same thing like over and over again. Sometimes that was probably good, sometimes it might have not been optimal. Most of the time it probably wasn't optimal, if I'm being honest and not generous. But I even had a guy one time who, in the very first gym where I just kind of got started, one of my coworkers, who was a good guy, I liked him, we were friends, but he saw me reading a book about training, and he literally laughed at me and told me, he said, "Boy, you won't learn anything from reading books." And he was serious. Now his reasoning for that was he felt like I should be plugging into other trainers, that's totally valid. What he probably didn't understand was that book was written by one of the most successful trainers in the area that we lived in. So anyway, the point is, you got to kind of continually seek knowledge. If you don't, you will become very stagnant as a trainer or a coach. Most people teach the way they learn, so I think that's a real problem, especially in like collegiate sports, because you have a lot of coaches who, whatever sport they played is kind of the filter that they look at strength and conditioning through, and I don't think that is really optimal. You need to look with a very broad lens when you're dealing with a lot of different types of athletes, and you have to understand different strength qualities and energy systems and various things. And I'm not saying that they don't, but I think a lot of them just kind of see things through kind of a narrow scope. And I say that because I've worked with a lot of college athletes and I've seen a lot of programs. And anyway, but as far as the general public, where I'm going with this is a lot of people that are going to the gym are really just kind of repeating stuff that they were doing when they first started working out. And that isn't good for making progress. So if you're doing that, you're really not helping yourself. The body adapts fairly quickly to a stimulus. And if we don't change things on a frequent basis, the body will adapt and get stagnant. It won't care. So you have to give it a continually adaptations. And I don't mean like some people will say you got to keep the body guessing. That really bugs me, because the body doesn't guess, it adapts. If the body guessed, that implies that it could get the answer wrong periodically, and that never happens. You don't see someone who, as an example, trains for a marathon and suddenly like benches 400 pounds. Okay, so wrapping up this week's subject. Basically, if you are just a regular gym goer, don't get comfortable with whatever you did your first year, or even a lot of people, you know, they'll follow a program and they'll see results and they'll really like that program and they'll want to keep doing that program. Again, for health, that's probably fine. If you want to see some kind of progress, you don't want to do that. You need to change things. And we'll explore that a little more as we go in this series. If you are some kind of a personal trainer or a coach, just make sure you continue to learn. And I'll probably get into some sources that are good, but what you have to understand there is, if you're on the coaching end of it or the teaching end of it, we all have different personalities. We're drawn to different things. The things that I really like might not be well suited to you. So, and that's fine. There's a lot of, it's a big subject. There's a lot of room for things. But sometimes it makes it kind of difficult just to make broad recommendations online. So, next week we are going to be talking about how body type and even your personality can affect what kind of exercise you'll respond to best. So thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all soon. Thanks. Bye.